Gas stations, we pass through them without a second thought. But tonight I'm going to change the way you see them. Forever. From strange figures watching from the tree line to fuel stops that vanish the moment you leave. These are the 10 most disturbing true gas station horror stories. All pulled from real accounts in places just like the ones you stop at. Before we begin, tap that like button. It helps this story reach more horror fans like you. And if you're watching this after dark, you're not alone. Drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from. Every viewer is part of this Creepy Souls family. Also, let me know which story hit you the hardest tonight. And if you haven't already, subscribe. It's a huge support and it keeps us digging up the stories others are too afraid to tell. Let's get started. I'd been driving all day, back roads mostly, the kind that twist like old veins through the mountains dotted with rusted mailboxes and houses set too far back to see. It was late October, and the kind of cold that seeps through your windows even when the heater's on. I hadn't meant to end up in Damascus, Virginia. I was heading toward Marion, but I took a wrong turn somewhere near White Top and just kept going. Fuel light blinked just as I crested a ridge and started the descent. I figured I'd find a station soon, and I did, barely. A tiny 2-pump place squatting at the bottom of a hollow, surrounded by bare trees and nothing else. The sign above it read, Milepost 41 General. One pump was bagged in faded plastic. The other worked, just slow. I pulled in. No other cars. As I stepped out, I noticed the quiet. Not silence. Just that Appalachian kind of quiet where the only sound is wet leaves shifting on windless ground. It was near dusk, the light turning thick and orange behind the trees. I filled up, trying not to breathe too deep. The air smelled like mold and rusted iron. Inside, it was worse. The floor had warped, so every step made the boards complain. Shelves were mostly empty, stocked with things that looked like they hadn't moved in a year. I grabbed a bottle of water and a pack of peanuts just to justify going in. That's when I saw the clerk. He was behind the register but not facing it. He stood beside it, angled toward the corner where a dusty dome mirror hung above the counter. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the mirror, not blinking, just staring, like he was waiting for something to happen inside it. I cleared my throat, held up the items. These, please. He didn't turn. He just slowly shifted his eyes to me, then down to the counter. I set the stuff down. That's when I saw it, in the convex mirror behind him. My own reflection only, it wasn't right. I wasn't moving. I had just set the water down, but in the mirror my reflection stood completely still, arms at my sides. My chest was rising and falling, breathing, but nothing else. I turned around quickly, half expecting someone to be behind me. But it was just me, alone. I looked back. The mirror image matched now. Lifted arm, half confused stare. Nothing off, the clerk hadn't moved. Everything okay? I asked, voice too small. He blinked, then turned without a word and rang me up. I paid in silence, trying not to look at the mirror again. Back outside, the light was fading fast. Fog had started to creep in low across the lot. I opened the door to my car and stopped. There were fingerprints across the inside of the driver's window. Not smudges, full clean prints. Too high to be mine. I'd locked the doors when I went in. I checked the car. Empty. Everything in place. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling, like someone had been sitting in there while I was inside, just watching. I got in, locked the doors again, and pulled out of the lot. Didn't even look back at the station until I was halfway up the ridge. When I did, I saw the clerk, just a dark shape now, still standing in the same spot, still looking at the mirror. I should have kept driving. I really should have. But 5 minutes up the road, my hands were shaking so bad I had to pull over. There was a gravel turnout just past an old barn ruin, and I parked under a bare oak tree. Turned the engine off, left the headlights on. Just needed to breathe. I opened the water bottle and sat back. That's when I noticed something else. On the dashboard, near the defrost vent, was a folded piece of paper, yellowed, creased like it had been folded and unfolded too many times. I hadn't seen it before. I don't keep loose paper in my car. I picked it up. There were only 2 lines written in faded black ink. You weren't supposed to stop. Now it knows your face. I dropped it. Opened the door and stepped into the cold night air, heart pounding. Who wrote that? I looked back at the car and saw my reflection in the driver's side window, except it wasn't mirroring me. It was just sitting there staring out, breathing. That slow rise and fall. I turned away, counted 10 breaths. When I looked back, it was gone. Just my own reflection again, perfectly normal. I left the paper on the gravel and kept driving. Tried to convince myself it was just exhaustion, a hallucination, or a leftover scare from the station, but things didn't go back to normal. For the next week, every time I passed a mirror, a bathroom, a store window, a parked car, I'd catch something just barely wrong. A twitch too late. A blink that didn't match. Once, in a motel mirror, I swear I saw myself smile when I hadn't. I stopped using mirrors after that. And then came the photos. Friends started texting me random shots from Instagram or old group chats, asking if I was doing okay. I'd open the images, and there I was, in the background usually, behind someone's shoulder, at a bus stop I hadn't been to in years, in the window reflection of a diner 2 towns over. I hadn't been to any of those places, at least. I don't remember going. The worst one came from my sister. It was a picture of her kid's birthday party. Balloons, streamers, cake. She hadn't invited me. We hadn't spoken in months. But there I was, reflected in the oven door behind her, just barely visible, just standing there, looking at the camera, not smiling. I haven't gone near Damascus since. I don't drive that stretch of road. I don't use public bathrooms. I've even taped over the mirrors in my apartment. Doesn't matter. I still catch glimpses. Car windows, puddles, TV screens, always too quick to prove. But I know what I saw that day. Something stepped out of that mirror, and I don't think it ever stepped back in. I was passing through southern West Virginia on my way to a job site in Kentucky. Freelance contracting work, nothing glamorous, just rural cell tower maintenance. I'd left Bluefield late trying to make up time. Around 10 p.m. I rolled through Elkhorn, or just outside it. Tiny little place tucked into the hollows, pressed between ridgelines like it was trying to disappear. I hadn't seen another car in over an hour. Roads were slick from drizzle, shoulders soft with runoff. I was running low on gas and lower on patience. When the headlights caught a faded sign, Hunter's Market and Gas, I pulled in. It sat crooked at the edge of the woods. One pump, old-style numbers, the kind of place where everything smells like diesel and cigarettes. A screen door hung lopsided from the frame, buzzing with a dying overhead bulb. I parked and stepped inside. A bell jingled, though I couldn't see one. It was dim, like the power was barely holding on. Shelves leaned into each other, filled with sun-faded snack bags and glass soda bottles covered in dust. The only sound was a soft hum from a cooler near the back. I cleared my throat. A man stood behind the counter, older, thin, stubbled face, wore a brown flannel buttoned all the way up and had that Appalachian stillness, like he didn't waste motion unless it was necessary. He didn't say anything at first, just nodded toward the pump when I held up my card. I paid, then paused. "You got a restroom?" He motioned vaguely with his hand. "Out back. Concrete door in the hill." That's all he said. I walked back outside. Light rain was falling now, misty, soft, barely there. Behind the building, the terrain sloped up steeply, thick with leafless trees and slick with moss. And sure enough, set into the dirt and rock like a bunker, was a squat concrete door. Heavy metal handle. No sign, no light. I hesitated, then told myself to stop being dramatic. The door creaked open with a sound like dragging a chair across tile. Inside was a short hallway, damp and narrow. The air smelled metallic like wet copper. One bare bulb dangled from the ceiling, lighting a stained floor and rust-ringed sink. A toilet sat in the corner, cracked, no mirror. I stepped in, shut the door behind me. The bulb buzzed overhead. About halfway through washing my hands, the light clicked off. Total blackness. No flicker. No fade, just gone. I froze. The sink gurgled behind me, then went quiet. I waited, listened, tried not to breathe too loud. After what felt like a full minute, I pulled out my phone. No signal. Screen flickering like it was glitching. I turned on the flashlight and aimed it at the door. Except there wasn't one. Just blank concrete where I knew the door had been. No seams. No handle. I stepped back, heart racing. The flashlight caught streaks on the wall, long ones like something had been dragged across it again and again. Nails, maybe. Or hands. I banged on the wall, shouted, nothing. The air turned colder. My breath steamed. I sat down back against the wall and told myself I'd wait until sunrise, then figure something out. But when I woke up, I was outside, lying in wet leaves, dew on my jacket, face crusted with dirt. The sun was up, already climbing over the ridge, and the gas station, it was boarded shut. Windows gone. Weeds grown up over the sign, like it hadn't served gas in 10 years. I didn't understand what I was looking at. The building was the same faded sign, same rusted pump, but now it leaned harder to one side, vines creeping up the wood. The Hunter's Market lettering was barely legible. A padlock hung from the door. No truck, no clerk, no open sign, just silence. I circled around back. The concrete door was still there, half covered in moss, mud caked into the seams like it hadn't been opened in years. No prints, no disturbance, just stillness. No smell of fuel, no buzzing light. Even the forest felt off, too quiet. No birds, no insects, just the wind stirring dead leaves in slow spirals. I tried calling for help. My phone worked now, 3 bars. I got through to a local tow service. Made something up about breaking down nearby. They said they'd send someone. An hour passed. I didn't move. Just sat in my truck watching the door, half expecting someone to walk out of it. When the tow guy showed up, I asked him about the place. He just shrugged. Been shut a long time. Owner died, I think. Maybe 10, 12 years back. Nobody's run it since. You sure you got gas here? I didn't answer. He followed my gaze toward the hill. You ain't go up there, did you? He asked. I nodded slowly. His mouth tightened like he wanted to say something but thought better of it. He just looked at the door for a long time, then said, "Ain't my business," and helped jump my battery. I left Elkhorn before noon. Never went back. But here's the thing. That night, after driving 3 hours west, and I stopped at a motel near Hazard. Basic place. Shag carpet. Old TV. But when I stepped into the bathroom and flipped on the light, there was no mirror, just an outline where one used to hang. And in the corner of the room, tucked under the sink, was a stained bucket. Old. Rusted. Full of standing water. I didn't sleep. Since then, it's happened 3 more times. Rest stops, diners, motels, places I've never been before. I'll step into a bathroom and something's missing. A door where there shouldn't be one. A vent I swear I saw move. A bulb that flickers when I walk by. And sometimes in that moment right before I sleep, that thin line between dreams and drifting, I smell that copper scent again. Damp concrete. Like rain on old coins. I've stopped driving at night. I keep a flashlight under the seat now. Keep the tank full, but I still think about that door. How it opened too easily. And how when it shut behind me I heard it lock. From the other side. I was somewhere between Welch and Gilbert, West Virginia, running on less than a quarter tank. Route 52 cuts through the Appalachian backbones like a bad scar. Steep switchbacks, logging trucks, the occasional roadside memorial. It was late October. Fog lay low across the road, thick and slow-moving like wet smoke. I hadn't seen another car in miles. The fuel light blinked on just as I rounded a tight curve and spotted it. A gas station barely visible through the mist. Looked like it had been dropped into the mountains and left to rot. The canopy was rusted, letters missing from the sign overhead. Just read L's Fuel and Market, 1 pump. The kind with the old-style flip numbers and a cracked digital screen that looked sunburnt. But the price looked current. Not cheap, but not abandoned either. I coasted in. Gravel crunched under my tires. My headlights caught the reflection of the station window, and for just a second, I thought I saw movement inside. When I stepped out of the truck, the air hit cold, sharp with the scent of damp wood and old rubber. Fog clung to my jeans. The pump still worked, barely. The nozzle was sticky. I topped off the tank, then decided to grab a water or something inside. The screen door sagged on one hinge. It let out a screech when I pulled it open. Inside, the light had a yellow tinge flickering overhead. A cooler buzzed in the back, and the shelves looked like they hadn't been restocked in weeks. Not empty, just undisturbed. The man behind the counter looked up when I entered. Late 50s, maybe. Greasy hair tucked under a faded Dale Jr. cap. Weathered face. Eyes that held still too long. He nodded once, then narrowed his gaze. "Back again, huh?" I blinked. "Sorry?" He pointed toward the window. "You came through here last year. Almost to the day." "I remember your face. Same truck, too," I frowned. "I've never been here before." He scratched his jaw, eyes still locked on me. "You sure about that?" I didn't answer. Just grabbed a bottle of water from the cooler and walked up to pay. He didn't say much after that. Just rang me up, slid me the change. Out of some strange compulsion, I pulled out my phone while still standing at the counter. The signal was spotty, 2 bars maybe, but it was enough to open my camera roll. I tapped to scroll back through recent photos. The newest one stopped me cold. It was a photo of me. Standing at the gas pump. Same jacket, same truck, same fog curling around the canopy above. But the timestamp read September 14th, 13 months ago. I stared at it for a long time. I don't remember taking that photo. I don't remember being here. I turned my phone toward the clerk. "Did you take this?" He didn't even glance at it. Just said, "You looked more tired last time." I left without another word. As I pulled out of the lot, I checked my mirrors. The gas station was gone. Just trees. And fog. I drove for 20 minutes before I let myself stop again. Pulled off near an old gravel shoulder and just sat in the truck with the engine idling. I scrolled through my phone again. That photo, it was still there. Me standing at that pump, eyes unfocused. Same posture I'd just had. The metadata said it was taken with my phone. Same model. Same camera specs. No filter, no signs of tampering, but I hadn't been in West Virginia last year. I'd checked old emails, work logs. Around that time, I was in Michigan for a contract job. Nowhere near Route 52. Still, the picture didn't lie. And the clerk, he'd looked certain. I tried calling a friend. The call dropped after one ring. No service now. Fog had thickened again. I stepped outside to pee and stretched my legs. The silence felt heavier here, like the woods were pressing in. No birds, no traffic, just the ticking of my cooling engine and my own breath. I walked around to the passenger side and noticed something smeared across the rear quarter panel. Grease. Or maybe ash. 4 finger-width streaks angled down like someone had pressed a hand there while leaning in. My mouth went dry. I got back in and locked the doors. When I made it to Gilbert, I found a diner still open. Sat in a booth and ordered black coffee. Hands still unsteady. The waitress, a younger woman with tired eyes, noticed my state. Asked if I was okay, I nodded. Then out of curiosity asked, "Hey, you know an old gas station out on 52? Just before the bend near the Elkhorn turnoff? El's Fuel and Market or something?" She paused, brow furrowed. "Used to be, but it burned down a couple years back. Lightning hit the canopy. Whole thing lit up. Nobody was in it, though. Shut down already," I stared at her. "It's still there." She shook her head. "Nah, they tore it out. Just trees and brush now. My uncle owns land up that way." I didn't argue. Just nodded. Back at the motel, I plugged in my phone. Tried to delete the photo. It wouldn't go. Screen froze. The next morning, it was gone. Not in the trash. Not archived. Just gone. Except now there was another new timestamp. New photo me, lying in bed in that exact motel room, curtains drawn, same t-shirt, eyes closed. But the picture was taken from inside the room, from the foot of the bed, and I live alone. It was summer of 2017, late August, the kind of heat that sticks behind your knees and under your arms no matter how high the AC's blasting. I was driving alone, headed back from a job site in Sweetwater, Tennessee. HVAC repair for a busted unit in a church basement that reeked of mildew and old wax. I'd taken the long way back north, cutting across smaller roads through the border towns near the Unicoi Range. No traffic, just narrow 2 lanes curling through low hollers and steep drop-offs. Somewhere outside of trade, maybe a little before the Virginia cutoff, I pulled off for a drink. The gas station didn't have a name on the sign, just a faded yellow sun graphic and the word cold, half flaked off. The siding was warped. Gutters hung low like tired arms. 1 pump. No cars. Inside was stale and quiet. The kind of quiet where even the hum of the coolers feels intrusive. I walked in and felt the change in temperature instantly. Not cold, just damp. The tile floors were darkened in patches from old water damage. My boots left faint prints behind. There was a bell when I opened the door, but no greeting. The clerk stood behind the counter, half-shadowed under a fly-specked bulb. Early 60s, maybe. Long gray hair and a rubber band and skin like dried riverbed clay. He didn't look up. I made my way to the back wall where the drink coolers lined up in a row. Most of them buzzed faintly, lit up inside with flickering fluorescence. But the one at the far end didn't hum. Its door was different too, fogged over like the seal wasn't right or the inside had its own climate. I stood there a second, then grabbed the handle. The door opened slowly with a sticky pull. Cold air rushed past me, sharp like dry ice. There was a girl inside, just standing. Right there, on the other side of the glass, pale, mid-teens maybe, hair wet and plastered to her temples. Her hands were pressed flat against the inside and her lips moved soundlessly. "Help me." I saw it clear as day, wide panicked eyes, breathing so fast the glass fogged more with each exhale. And then she was gone. Not like she ducked or stepped away, just gone. Like she'd never been there, I staggered back. Dropped the bottle I'd grabbed. It hit the tile and cracked, cola spraying in thin streams across my boots. I turned to the clerk, heart hammering so hard it shook my ribs. He still hadn't moved. Didn't even blink, just said, "Flat and dull. Don't open that one." I didn't go back to that cooler. Didn't ask more. Just stared at the cracked soda bottle on the floor like it might explain something. I managed to mumble, "Is there someone?" But the words felt stupid halfway out of my mouth. The clerk shook his head. Slow, like it wasn't the first time someone asked. I paid for a new drink and left. Didn't even open it. Just drove. Windows down, air hot and full of pine and asphalt. I told myself I'd imagined it. Long day, no sleep, brain mixing memories or half-asleep hallucinations. That happens, right? But the image stuck, burned into my mind. The way her mouth formed the words, the way her eyes locked to mine like she'd been waiting, like she knew I'd be the one to open it. Weeks passed. I looked up every missing person report I could find from that area. Girls under 18, nothing matched. No station listed there either. No mention of a cooler incident or abandoned structures. One night in October, I drove back down that stretch, took the same roads, even found what I thought was the same pull-off. But there was nothing there, just a concrete pad swallowed by weeds. Broken cinder blocks piled near the tree line. No sign. No cooler. No station. It was like it had never existed. I didn't tell anyone for years. But here's what I can't explain. Last week, present day, I was clearing out old photos from my work phone. I never used the camera, but I was trying to clean space. Found one I didn't recognize, buried deep in the file structure, unlabeled. No location data. It was a blurry shot of a drink cooler, not the whole station, just the inside of a fogged-up glass door. And in the corner, barely visible through the mist, was a face, not screaming, not even moving, just watching, looking straight at the camera. I deleted it, then emptied the trash. It came back an hour later. New timestamp, same image, and this time her lips weren't moving. They were smiling. I was 3 hours behind schedule somewhere north of Boone, coasting down a 2-lane stretch soaked with fog and moonlight. The kind of mountain road that winds too tight and dips too sudden, lined with shoulderless drop-offs and dead radio zones. I'd been running freight since dawn. Nothing big, just commercial HVAC parts for a place in Elkins. Night had come fast and my body was feeling every mile. Eyes heavy, shoulders stiff. I flipped on the CB out of habit, just for noise. I don't talk much on there, but when you're deep in the mountains and all you hear is your own engine, and the occasional chirp of night animals, the crackle of static feels almost like company. Channel 19 was quiet for a while, then someone whispered. It came through faint at first, like they were standing just out of mic range. 37.69. Then silence. More static. Then again. Same voice. Same whisper. 21.42. I didn't key up. Just listened. The voice kept repeating those two strings, over and over. No call sign. No truck noise in the background. No chatter. Just those numbers, soft and steady. I pulled into a fuel stop maybe 5 miles up. An old one I'd used a few times before, tucked against a ridge near a gravel turnout. Murphy's Fuel and Tire. Old signage, flickering lights under the canopy, no clerk outside. Just the low hum of overhead sodium lamps and the squeal of brakes on wet concrete. I parked at pump 3. Killed the engine. CB still on. Voice still whispering. I jotted down the numbers and checked the lat long on my map app. Took a second to lock GPS. When it did, my stomach dropped. The coordinates pointed directly to the fuel stop I was sitting at. Not the town, not the road. This exact location. I leaned back in the seat and stared through the windshield at the station. Everything looked the same. The rain had let up, but fog clung to the edge of the woods behind the diesel pumps. That's when the station lights started going out, not all at once. One by one. First the overhead above pump 1, then pump 2, the fluorescent bulbs in the side windows. The sign above the tire bay, one by one, like someone was walking a circuit with a breaker panel, until the only light left was the one above my pump. Everything else, blacked out. No movement, no sound. I shut off the CB. It didn't matter. I could still hear the whisper. I didn't get out of the truck, just sat there with the engine idling, hand hovering near the gear shift. I kept waiting for someone to step out from the shadows, but no one came. I looked back at the CB, turned the dial to another channel. All static. Back to 19 silence. Rolled the window down an inch. Wet air drifted, in heavy with the smell of oil-soaked concrete and something else I couldn't place at. First mildew, like the inside of an old tent. Locked the doors without thinking. Then the light above me flickered, not the bulb itself, but like something passed in front of it. A shadow maybe. I checked the mirrors. Nothing behind me. I reached for the glove box and pulled out the folding map I still kept from the pre-GPS days. Flattened it on my lap. Found the same coordinates. There it was again. My location. Exact match. But something else caught my eye. The name Murphy's Fuel and Tire was circled in red ink. I didn't remember doing that. There was handwriting next to it in the margin. Faint like old pencil. Don't stop here again. My hands went cold. I traced the writing with my finger. Same pressure, same slant I used for work notes. But I'd never been here at night before. Not once. I glanced back at the building. All still dark, except now the light above my pump had gone out too. I sat in darkness, engine still running, headlights barely reaching the gravel turnout. I threw it in reverse. Backed out. Didn't even finish fueling. I drove until I hit the state line. Didn't stop again until I reached a rest area outside. Charleston. Pulled into the far end of the lot. Tried to sleep. Didn't. The next day I opened my phone. Scrolled to my voice memos. Sometimes I record things while driving. Mileage, addresses, notes. There was a new file at the top. No title. I didn't remember recording anything. I hit play. Just static for the first few seconds. Then a whisper. Same voice. Same numbers. But this time, it ended with something else. Pump 3, you shouldn't have stopped. I deleted the file. Powered off the phone. I haven't run that route since. Don't even like crossing the Tennessee line anymore. But sometimes, middle of the night, driving the long stretch up through McDowell County, I'll turn on the CB again just to feel less alone. And once in a while, Channel 19 goes quiet until the whisper returns, repeating numbers always. The same 2 sets, always the same chill crawling up my neck. Like someone out there still remembers me, and they're still waiting at pump 3. I pass through McDowell County, West Virginia, about once every month for work. Long-haul deliveries, freight and parts mostly, between Ohio and the Carolinas. There's a stretch of Route 52 that winds low through a hollow west of Welch where I always stop. It's not much. A 2-pump station tucked against the hillside just before the road turns to switchbacks. The place doesn't even have a real name. Just a faded marathon sign and a single flickering security light over the diesel lane. Locals call it Old Bailey's, even though I've never seen anyone working there who looked like a Bailey. Still, it's quiet. Easy in, easy out. Never crowded. But a few weeks back, something changed. It was around 11:30 p.m. I'd been pushing through fog all the way down from Beckley. The kind of mist that clings low and refuses to burn off even after sundown. I pulled into the station like I always did, headlights barely cutting through the damp. That's when I saw him. A man, standing at pump 3, not fueling. No vehicle. Just standing there, motionless. He didn't turn when I pulled in. Didn't flinch when my headlights washed over him. I eased into pump 1 and kept my door shut. Watched him through the windshield. He wore a hooded jacket, brown, maybe green, and loose jeans, the kind you see stained with oil and dirt. Head slightly tilted, arms hanging limp. I stayed in the truck. Waited maybe 3 minutes. Eventually, I pulled back onto the road and drove without filling up. The next night, same route. Same time he was there again, same pump, same stillness. Third night, he hadn't moved. That's what really got to me. The exactness of it. Like he was placed there. Like he belonged to the station somehow. The fourth night, I changed it up. Left an hour early just to get ahead of the routine. I figured if he was waiting on some pattern, I'd break it. When I rolled in just after 10:15, the lot was empty. No fog. No figure. Pump 3 stood bare under the buzzing light. I felt stupid for letting it get to me. Climbed out of the truck, stepped into the sharp cold, and reached for the pump handle. That's when my phone vibrated. Buzz. Buzz. Voicemail. No missed call. Just a new voicemail, like it had skipped the ring. I didn't check it right away. Just stared at the notification, heart thudding harder than I wanted to admit. Finally, I tapped play. At first, just static. Then a faint rasp, heavy wet breathing. Then a voice, low and raw, like it had been whispering for a long time. Tail to my name drawn out, like someone trying it on. I turned in a slow circle, scanning the tree line, the pumps, the rooftop, no one. Just the cold, and the sound of my own breath catching in my throat. I didn't finish fueling that night. I got back in the cab, locked the doors, and drove until I hit the Virginia line. Parked at a rest stop outside Tazewell and sat for an hour with the dome light on, listening to the voicemail again and again. Always the same. Heavy breathing. Then Dale, nothing else. No background noise. No trace of wind or movement. Just that name my name said like a slow exhale. I didn't tell anyone. What could I say? Some guy at a gas pump said my name through a call that never came in. I tried deleting the voicemail the next morning. It disappeared, then reappeared 5 minutes later. I factory reset my phone. Changed my number. The message returned the night after. Same timestamp. Same voice. I told myself it had to be a prank. Spoofing. Some glitch in the system. But I stopped going through McDowell. Changed my routes. Took longer jobs. Drove around. Still some nights, usually when I'm parked in some quiet gravel pull-off, or letting the engine cool after a long mountain descent, I'll check my phone and find it, a new voicemail. Same number. No caller ID. No missed call. Always just one word. Dale. The worst was last week. I was up near Seneca Rocks, waiting out a rock slide detour. Middle of the night. Fog hanging low over the ridge, crows quiet in the trees. I got out to check my tires, that's when I noticed it. Stamped into the mud near the passenger side steps. A single footprint. Boot tread. Wide heel. Deep toe dig, right beside the cab. But no tracks leading in. No tracks leading out. Just one print. Like someone had stepped forward and vanished. Back in the truck, I sat still for a long time, lights off. Phone in my lap. No signal. Just the voicemail notification waiting. I didn't play it that time. Didn't need to. I already knew what it would say. I was heading east through Kentucky, cutting across the Cumberland Plateau. It had rained all morning, just enough to coat the gravel roads in film and fog. That soft, bone-cold kind of wet that seeps into your boots no matter how quick your stop. I'd been hauling HVAC units from Lexington toward the Virginia line. Normally I'd push straight through, but I hadn't slept right in days and the cab was starting to feel too tight, like it was pressing in around me. I needed a break, even if just to breathe something other than recirculated air. The road twisted past a tree line that looked more like smoke than woods, and that's when I saw it. A squat gas station slumped at the base of a hollow, the kind of place that looked like it had been there long before the state started paving anything. No name on the sign, just peeling white paint, a rusted Coke machine, and one old pump leaning to the left. A faint twang of country music spilled from a busted wall speaker near the door. Low and scratchy, something out of the 60s, maybe George Jones or Ray Price, barely audible over the buzz of insects and the quiet drizzle. It didn't stop, didn't skip, just played like someone had left the radio on half a century ago and never came back to turn it off. I pulled in. Left the engine running. The place smelled like wet plywood and old oil. When I stepped inside, the chime above the door jangled too loud for how quiet it was. Inside, the light buzzed unevenly. A wall of dusty snack racks, a warped fridge humming with what looked like milk long past expiration, and one chair behind a counter that looked welded into place by grime. And there was the TV. A small black and white set, bolted into the corner of the ceiling behind the counter. It showed the outside lot, live feed I assumed. But then I looked closer. It wasn't showing now. Wasn't foggy. Wasn't raining. It was dry. Clear. Morning by the angle of the sun. And there was someone on the screen, pulling into the pump. A rig just like mine, same color, same dent on the front fender. The guy stepped out, same jacket, same jeans, same boots. It looked like me. I stared. Time froze a little, then I asked quietly, "Is that feed live?" The man behind the counter barely moved. Mid-60s, long gray beard. Denim shirt buttoned all the way to the throat. He didn't look up from the magazine he was thumbing through. "That thing don't work," he said, voice like sand. "Ain't worked in years." I looked again, just static, like the channel had been cut or never existed. I didn't say anything else. Bought a bottle of water, left exact change. Didn't take my eyes off the TV as I walked out. As I drove away, the country music still played. Same song. Same low broken notes. That night I parked in a turnout somewhere off Route 160. High up near the Virginia state line where the cell signal dies and the road forgets it used to be asphalt. I tried to sleep, but I kept thinking about the screen. About the way myself moved on it. Not like a reflection, not like a memory, but like someone going through motions I hadn't made yet. In the morning, I checked my dashcam footage out of some dumb curiosity. Right there, frozen in a frame from when I pulled into that station. The door to the building was still closed, but I remembered it swinging open. I remembered the chime. I remembered the man behind the counter. I remembered the music. None of it was there, just fog, rain, pump, truck. No sound in the video either. Dead audio. I drove back that afternoon, took longer than it should have. Road signs didn't match where I thought I'd been. The fuel gauge dipped faster. I started wondering if I'd taken the wrong road altogether. Maybe imagined the whole stop, but eventually I found it, or found where it used to be. Same slope, same clearing, same turn. But the building was caved in, collapsed in on itself like a rotted lung. Vines covered what was left of the pump. The Coke machine lay on its side, cracked open and rusting out from the inside. No music, no lights. Just wind and wet branches rattling against the walls that remained. I got out and stepped through the rubble. No signs of a TV, no cords. Just an old wood counter, buckled under a fallen rafter. Behind it, a corner wall stained with black water streaks. I crouched and brushed away dust and glass. Carved into the surface, faint but real, were 6 letters. Scratched by hand, shaky DALTON, my name. I didn't touch it. Just stood there and let the rain soak through my shirt. Back in the truck, I sat with the key halfway turned, engine silent. I opened my phone. No signal. But one notification was waiting. Voicemail. I played it. Crackling static at first. Then the same old country song. Grainy. Slow. A line I hadn't noticed before came through clear. "You can't run from what you've already done." No voice. No message, just the song on loop. Until the file stopped. Since then, I haven't taken that route again. Haven't talked about it. But sometimes if the radio glitches just right, I'll hear that melody rise up again, soft and far away. And I swear I catch a glimpse of that feed again, out of the corner of my eye. The version of me that stepped out of the truck. Only this time, I don't think he goes inside. He just stands there, waiting for me to catch up. I was cutting through a stretch of the Blue Ridge that people tend to forget exists. The kind of road GPS only half trusts and locals don't bother naming. My dispatcher had routed me the long way to dodge a backup near Charleston. I didn't mind. I'd been running solo for 3 weeks straight, and sometimes it's easier to be in the quiet. Somewhere near mile marker 237, west of Saltville and a little south of the Virginia-Kentucky line, I pulled off for gas. Fog had been clinging to the ridge for the past 20 miles. Not the kind that rolls in, this was the kind that stays. Thick and pale like old dishwater, smeared across the treetops and filling the low places like something spilled. The gas station was barely a building, just a narrow, single-pump setup next to a concrete box of a store, with sun-bleached drink ads in the windows. No other cars. No sign of a clerk, but the pump worked. I eased up beside it and cut the engine. The hum of the truck died, and the silence that followed wasn't normal. No cicadas, no dogs. Just the hiss of the fog moving through trees. I stepped out. That's when I noticed the payphone. It stood about 20 feet from the pump, bolted to a rotting post, half swallowed by kudzu. The receiver hung loose, swinging a little in the breeze. The buttons were faded, metal rusted. Out of instinct, I looked around. Still no one. No lights inside the store. No sign of movement. I heard the phone ring. It was a weak sound, tinny and soft, like it didn't really want to be heard. I should have ignored it. Who answers a payphone anymore? Especially way out here in a spot no one builds things anymore. But something about it felt direct, not random, like it had waited for me, so I picked it up. The line clicked. There was a pause, just a breath, then a man's voice, calm and quiet. It's not your turn yet. Click, deadline. I stood there, phone still to my ear, staring out into the fog. A low beep made me turn. The gas pump, the old LED display, had changed. Where the numbers should have been, it now read, "You were warned," not flashing, not glitching, just displayed. Plain and deliberate. I stared at it for a long time, trying to reason it away. Prank, maybe. Coincidence. But the pump wasn't connected to anything modern. No cameras. No credit reader. It didn't even have a card slot. I put the nozzle back and got in my truck. Drove off without fueling. Didn't even notice until I was halfway down the next ridge that my hands were shaking. I didn't talk about it. Didn't post, didn't call anyone. It didn't feel like a story. It felt like something I wasn't supposed to understand. I tried to push it down, chalk it up to exhaustion. Highway hypnosis. But for the next week, little things started to change. The CB cut out at random, static spilling through in brief bursts. Sometimes, buried in the noise, I thought I heard voices, not words, just rhythm, like someone repeating numbers or names. Once, at a rest stop outside Hazard, I found a post-it note stuck to my windshield. Pale yellow smeared ink, just said, "This isn't your station." No one had been near the truck. I'd only gone inside for 5 minutes. Another time, I saw someone standing at the edge of a pull-off in my mirror. Not moving, just watching. When I stopped and backed up, nothing there. And the pump message. It kept coming back, not just on gas stations, microwave readouts, toll booth receipts. The little digital clock on my dash. You were warned. Sometimes it would blink, sometimes it would just be there for a second too long, then vanish. I started taking different routes, switching jobs, moving deliveries farther east. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd stepped into something. Crossed a line I didn't know existed. A month later, I passed through that same stretch again. Mile marker 237. Not by choice. A last-minute detour because of a landslide near Beckley. I told myself I wouldn't stop. Wouldn't even look, but the payphone was gone, the pump was still there but dark. No lights. No fuel. The store had collapsed in on itself. Roof caved, siding peeled back like bark from a tree. Looked like it had been abandoned for years. Still, I parked. Got out. Fog pressed around me like it had been waiting. Everything smelled of damp earth and old metal. I walked to the crumbled wall of the store. Pushed open the sagging door. The floor groaned beneath my boots. Inside, behind the ruined counter, the phone was there, mounted to the wall. No dial. No cord. Just the receiver, bolted in place. I didn't touch it. I just stared. The display behind the counter and an old register flickered, then lit up. Turn coming soon. I don't stop for payphones anymore, but I see them on highways. In rest areas. Places they shouldn't still be. Sometimes they're ringing and sometimes I catch myself reaching. Before I remember the voice. Before I remember it wasn't my turn yet, but it's getting closer. I can feel it. I was on my usual eastbound run through the southern stretch of the Appalachian Mountains. A freight delivery from Knoxville to Roanoke. It was early November and the ridges were soaked in that dense kind of fog that never seems to lift, even after sunrise. You know the kind, clinging low, thick enough that your high beams do more harm than good. I've driven this route over 100 times, but it never stops feeling older than the map, like the mountain carved the road itself, just to trap you in a loop. That night, I was tired. Not just sleepy, bone-tired. I'd been pushing it too long, skipping real stops, running light on food and caffeine. But I told myself I'd fuel up quick and make it to Withville before resting. No idling, no lingering. Just past midnight, I saw a small pull-off, one I didn't recognize. Narrow canopy over a single pump, tucked beside a gravel turnout near a switchback. There was no sign on the road, no name, and no lights in the station itself. But the pump was lit, quiet and still. The kind of quiet where you start to hear things you're not sure are real. Wind moving through trees, distant night birds, the flecks of your tires cooling on damp pavement. I didn't get out. Didn't see a reason to. I swiped my card, rolled the window down a few inches, and waited for the pump to click. Just fog and forest on either side of the road, no other headlights in sight. It took maybe 5 minutes. I watched the numbers roll, caught a glimpse of my reflection in the rear view. Nothing moved. Nothing shifted. Just stillness. When it finished, I pulled off slow and steady, back onto the curve of the mountain road, and drove like I hadn't stopped at all. A few hours later, when I was parked at the lot in Withville, I checked my bank app. Just habit, but the charge wasn't there, no pending transaction. No hold, nothing. I checked again later that day. Same thing, no receipt, no location data on the GPS log. It was as if I'd skipped the stop entirely, but I remembered it. Felt the pump click in my hand. Saw the mist curl around the hood. The pump worked. I drove 140 miles after that stop. My tank proved it. Something didn't sit right. So I pulled the SD card from the dash cam, loaded it on my laptop, fast-forwarded to the timestamp, and there it was again, the stop. Same location, same angle. Everything looked the way I remembered it. Except for one thing, there was someone behind my truck from the moment I pulled in. They were just standing there, at the edge of the gravel, maybe 10 feet from my rear bumper. They didn't move, didn't pace, just watched, still as stone. I froze. Replayed the footage 3 times. They never looked away, and I never noticed them. I tried to convince myself it was a trick of the fog, a shadow cast from my taillights or a smudge on the lens. But I knew better. The footage was clear. They were tall, thin, wearing something that hung like a coat or poncho too long at the sleeves. No identifiable features, no face I could see. But the posture, the intent, that was what hit me hardest. They were watching. Not waiting, not curious, just present. I paused the frame and stared at it until the laptop screen dimmed. The next day I called my bank to double-check. They confirmed, no transaction, no decline, no attempt. Like nothing was ever swiped. The GPS route from that hour was blank. No coordinates, no gap. Just a clean line, as if I'd gone from mile marker 193 to 207 without stopping. I reached out to a few other drivers I knew, ones who'd run that same corridor. I described the spot vaguely just to see if anyone else had noticed it. Only one guy responded. He sent back a single text. "There's no station out there anymore." Burned down in '09, I didn't reply. Just stared at the words for a long time, letting them sink like cold water under the skin. That night, I made the mistake of watching the dashcam footage again. Only this time, I let it run past the fill-up. Past the point, I pulled away. As my taillights faded into the fog, the camera kept recording. The figure stepped forward. One slow step onto the gravel, then another. They walked straight toward where my cab had been. Stopped exactly at the pump. Stood there for a moment, then turned to face the camera. No movement. No gesture, just facing it. The timestamp ran for another full minute before the fog swallowed them whole. I didn't sleep that night. I scrubbed the card, trashed the file, factory reset the dash cam, bought a new one, changed my route, avoided that stretch of mountain entirely. Still, every now and then, in rest areas or overnight lots, I wake up thinking I hear gravel shifting behind the cab. Not loud, just enough like someone is standing there, just watching, waiting. And I don't check the camera anymore, because if they're there, I don't want to know what happens when it is my turn to get out. It was early October when Caleb and I headed south through McDowell County, trailing the curves of Route 16 down into the hills around War, West Virginia. We'd been camping in the woods outside Grundy for a few days, just a short break from work and whatever was waiting back in Charleston. We were both tired. The kind of tired that makes you hungry even when you've eaten, that makes you talk less. I was driving. Caleb rode shotgun, quiet most of the time, watching trees blur by as fog crept down the ridge like a slow leak. We were low on gas and lower on energy when we saw the lights. A gas station just off the road, nestled between two slopes sagging under its own age. One pump, busted concrete lot, a tin awning that rattled in the breeze. The sign above the station was sun-bleached and unreadable, but the open light in the window still blinked, dim, uneven. Inside smelled like wet cardboard and rust. Cold air bled from a dying cooler near the front, and the floorboards popped every few steps. The clerk looked up when we entered, middle-aged, greasy ball cap, eyes that didn't blink often enough. He sat behind a yellowed plexiglass screen, leafing through what looked like a hunting catalog. Caleb nudged me. "You want drinks or snacks?" "Both," I said. We grabbed a few bags of chips and a couple bottles of soda. No beer in the front. Caleb asked the guy behind the counter, "You got anything cold?" The clerk didn't answer at first. Then he pointed, coolers in back. "Through that curtain." He didn't smile. I glanced back. There was a split in the paneling near the restroom door, a thick navy curtain pinned into a wooden arch. Behind it, just dimness. Caleb shrugged. "I'll check." He disappeared through the curtain. A minute passed. Then two. I stood there by the counter listening to the buzz of the fluorescent light, waiting to hear the sound of a cooler door opening, maybe his voice asking which kind to grab. Nothing. "Caleb?" I called, still nothing. I walked over and pulled the curtain back. No room. No cooler, just a solid concrete wall. No door, no light. Just gray surface and a faint chill like standing in a basement. I stood frozen, looked around the edge of the curtain. There was no hallway, no other space back there. Just a shallow nook barely a foot deep. I turned to the clerk. He was gone. The stool was empty. Catalog on the counter. No sound now except the faint ticking of a clock I couldn't see. Then the lights above me flickered once, twice, then the front door slammed shut behind me. Hard enough that the window rattled. I ran to the front door. It was locked. Deadbolt turned from the inside. I yanked it twice, then banged my fist against the glass. "Caleb!" I shouted. "This isn't funny." No answer. I looked back toward the curtain. It swayed slightly. Not much. Just enough to make me feel like it had exhaled. I stepped forward again. Slowly, touched the concrete with the tips of my fingers. It was cold, dry, real. I moved the curtain aside completely, ran my hands along both walls. No seams, no vents, no door, just a wall where a room should have been. I turned back toward the counter. The catalog was gone. In its place sat Caleb's phone. Screen still lit, flashlight app open. Battery at 22%, I picked it up. No recent calls, no photos, no texts, no signs he'd ever walked in here with it. I went behind the counter looking for keys or a back entrance. Found a drawer filled with receipts dated years ago, all faded, many with the same handwritten note. Case. Through curtain. The date stopped in 2014. I found a small framed photo wedged behind an old register. Dusty, cracked, 4 men. One of them looked like the clerk, just younger. Another looked exactly like Caleb, but the photo was dated 1997. Same face. Same build. Same lazy grin. I backed out from behind the counter and sat on the floor for a while. Eventually, the lights above me cut out one by one, not all at once, and they dimmed in a sequence, like a slow breath letting out. The last one to go was the small bulb above the curtain. When the power finally died, I heard something faint, like a cooler door creaking open somewhere very far away. I left the station around dawn. The door was unlocked when I woke up. No sign of the clerk. No curtain. No concrete wall. Just dust and shadow and racks of stale chips. The pump didn't work. The open sign was off. I drove away without speaking, without Caleb. I filed a missing persons report the next day. Gave them the name of the station. They said it had been closed since 2015, condemned for mold. But here's the part that still gets me. Every few months, when I'm driving those back roads near war, even when I'm not thinking about it, I'll catch a glimpse in my mirror, just a dark blue curtain, blowing in the wind.